Hello everybody, welcome back. Omega Given here, giving you another lore video about a township tale. As we're fastly approaching the release of the Climbing Tower to the Quest, well, it's been hinted, we don't know exactly when the release is, but it's probably coming fairly soon. We want to go into the lore of the Climbing Tower and how we think the Climbing Tower was besieged. Yes, besieged. It was some battle has broken out at the Climbing Tower, and we might want to go and look into the evidence of it. But before we get started, I just want to let you guys know, if you want to watch the full length of all of us finding the evidence, that would be in our live stream yesterday, which is basically titled close to the same as this title, but you know, it's in a long form format where you can go and watch the whole stream as we talk about it and everything. So go check that out, as well as go check out some of our other lore videos. We have a lot of different lore videos to come, and we have a lot of lore videos already made. So if you're interested in these, please go watch those, like, subscribe so you can get more, and let's get right into it. So before we get into the Climbing Tower and show off the evidence that we have found in it, we're going to look a little bit at the overview of what we know so far, or what we have theorized so far, as this is not fact, this is speculation on my part, and a little bit of dabble of other people's thoughts as I have accumulated them in my own. So right here is the lore board. This is a lore board developed by, I don't remember their names, but Gasher. He's the guy that let me into their lore board to be able to put my theories on. So they have a whole timeline here of their own, but I kind of am going a little bit off on my own timeline over here. This is my section of the lore board. So here I want to overview a little bit of what is going on in my timeline or my speculative timeline of what's happening in a township tale. So in a township tale, there are different civilizations, or this is my theory of it. There's different civilizations. There are the earthwork civilization, which I think is probably the most ancient civilization in a township tale, and why I think they are probably one of the most ancient is because we find evidence of them in the archery shrine area, which is kind of like a little bit of a side mountain pass, not the mountain pass, but off to the side. And we find a lot of different stone structures, or earthy stone. It looks like the earth below us, so I'm going to call them the earthworks. That's why I call them that. We can see that they have shrines built before, well, it looks like it must have been before the current shrines that were built by the artificers, which we are deeming as the people that have created the darker gray stone. As we can tell that there's two different kinds of materials solidly built here. I kind of look at it and see, oh, there must have been somebody that built a shrine before, and then the artificers came along and built their shrine on top of it as they discovered the mythical powers of these shrines. And we can see some evidence how they might have taken maybe artifacts from those old shrines and incorporated them into their new shrines. Just like as here we can see that there's the big monolith that was before in the archery shrine, as well as right here where you place your hand to activate the shrine. It looks like that's also made of stone, and they must have like pulled that out of the previous shrine and put it back into their new shrine. So that's kind of like my theory of it. We can also see a little bit of evidence when we go over to the skill shrine. It looks like there is like a pile of stones that might have moved off, and then they built the shrine where that stones probably were, and they moved the stones back, making it so that, you know, they can basically keep the shrine how it was, but they wanted to add a little bit of touch of their own. So that's why here we might see that the stones are actually on top of the shrine because they're moved, rather than over here in this shrine, it's so big that they probably didn't want to move it, so they just built it on, like, basically on top of it or against it. So that's how they started it there. So that's kind of like my theory, is that there was a earthwork civilization before, and then the artificers came along and built their civilization. Those are like the two main people that we want to talk about today. The Kolmui, which are the people that built the town that we know of, the sandstone town, came a little bit later. So we're not going to talk about them too much today, but we're going to talk specifically about the artificers, as the artificers are the ones that built the tower, or we suppose have built the tower, and they might have had a quarrel with somebody else. We don't know who, but maybe we'll discover it in our evidence today. So let's go into the evidence that we have found. So as we approach the climbing tower in our free cam view, I want to just explain a little bit of what my theory is of why the stone is gray. I actually do think that this darker gray stone is actually granite, and that the stone that we see in the landscape is just normal stone that would, like, you know, is maybe unrefined. So I think that's really kind of helps us explain a little bit of why this stone looks different, and why the artificers might have been more advanced in technology. They were able to quarry out this granite, and the old nation, the earthworks nation, was not able to do so, as they didn't have the tools to be able to do such things. attacks. So as we now go in at the tower, we find that it's a very, very narrow pass, and it must have been super hard to besiege. But we want to like take a slight look at like the positioning of where things are. For one, we do want to look that there is stalagmites next to the tower, which is kind of interesting. You don't see this in too many other places, maybe in the forest once, but we just see these stalagmites in the ground that we just want to take note of. I don't have any theories on them yet, but we'd love to hear your theories in the description down below. So now the first thing that we want to look at are these spikes. These giant spikes that have pointy ends, so we think that there must have been some kind of projectile bolt that might have been fired from either a ballista or some kind of like, projectile throwing object of some sort. So we see a bunch of them all into this side of the tower, the right side of the tower, where it looks like it must have been a courtyard. We don't see any bolts anywhere else, at least as of now, but we just take note that all of them come from like, either a topish angle or a direct on angle, or maybe a direct on to the left. This also shows that they must have been firing from either the tower itself or maybe off on one of the ridges that you cross before you come into the tower. So definitely some fire from outside. Some kind of attacker was coming in to attack from the outside. One reason I have for why maybe there's so much direct fire on that area is because when you first enter the tower, you kind of go down below and then come back up into that courtyard, meaning that courtyard must have been the first exposed place that maybe the residents of the tower were able to be fired upon. So that might be why that is so directly attacked compared to before. And here we can just zoom up a little bit and we can see the spikes, like the actual spikes are going right into the tower, showing that this is definitely some kind of projectile that came in from that ridge on the right. So before going on to the next location of the tower, we want to zoom into the courtyard a little bit, and we actually see these little mounds of dirt. I oftentimes look at these mounds of dirt and I kind of resemble these mounds of dirt to be something that associates with dead bodies of old, as we see these mounds of dirt first in the battlefield, which is a fairly confirmed theory that there was a battle in the across the sandstone bridge from the town, and that those mounds of dirt must have been either the remains of bodies in the battle that maybe nature took its course and just plowed it over and just made like a mound of dirt, or maybe they were graves themselves. I'm actually more on the first theory of that, but I do believe that this must have been a result of maybe these are probably bodies of those from the battle, showing that there was a battle here. So next, let's move into the tower itself. As we move into the tower, we kind of look at the floors and we find that there's 3 different floors that consist of the entirety of the inside of the tower, and then the rest of the floors are actually more of bridges and stair looking objects. So that's not really something about the battle that we want to make note, but it's just a structure that we might look at in future videos. But we see that there's 3 different floors, there's a lot of different bridges and stairs that might have been in the tower, and we see that a lot of it is destroyed. And my theory of this is we don't really see much evidence of it, but I think that this destruction is definitely not from the outside, as the outside walls of the tower are just fine. So my theory is that these must have been destroyed from some kind of explosives. Either they are from the opposers, something that's attacking the castle, or the tower, not the castle, but they might have used these explosives to either try to stop the defenders' escape, or they might have been the defenders trying to blow up the bridges and the stairs and all of the stuff behind them so that they cannot be chased up the tower. So that's kind of my theory right now of the insides, and how there seems to have been a lot of destruction on the inside somehow. I just can't see any other destruction other than maybe explosives, or possibly terabata might have been some of the attackers, and the terabata just under the weight of them, as they are stone golems, they're able to destroy things from the inside. That could have been another theory. Those are like 2 theories I'm kind of shuffling around in my head. We also see this ash wood inside the tower, or somebody said it looks like ash wood. I slightly agree with them, that does look like ash wood, and it seems like this is part of the build of the tower. It does not seem like it's from a future nation or a previous nation. It seems like they used ash wood in the tower. As we look a little bit up later on to see that some of the drawbridges, it looks like they use drawbridges as well as just normal bridges to be able to navigate the tower itself. Like right here, there's a drawbridge right here, and you see the wood is used in that drawbridge. So the next section we're going to look at is actually this poking out section from the tower. I think this is the 5th checkpoint, if I'm not wrong. There's 2 different angles where we see these spikes coming in, one from the top angle and one from the direct on from the ridge angle, which further shows where the ballista shots may have been coming from the ridge. But it also shows that maybe the defenders or maybe the attackers were somehow able to get up on top of the tower and shoot down So maybe there's like those two theories in, like we don't know who shot what, if from the top angle, but there is definitely those two distinct angles. There is one or two stray shots that are from different angles. I don't know if we should, you know, consider those as much of canon or like, you know, of importance at least. Maybe we're on the idea that terabatas basically can throw these things to actually make them hit. So maybe it's not ballistas at all, and that these terabatas are able to throw from like different angles. So we also see a lot of this wood underneath. I don't know exactly why that wood is there, but Gasher also made the observation when we were on live stream that it looks like they're almost trying to break off this section of the bridge, as if that fifth shrine was important. Maybe we actually come to see that maybe these shrines have something to do with teleportation, as they have hinted in a future update that the checkpoints you will be able to teleport back to, so you don't have to do all of the tower at once, as it is a hard endeavor. So that might be canon, like, you know, information that we're dealing with, that these are actually teleportation things, that maybe that fifth checkpoint is how you get to the upper level of the tower. So that's might be why they were trying to destroy it off of the tower. So just like a little observation there that I think was basically stage 3. We kind of went through a couple stages already of like the battle, but this is probably like the stage 3 of the battle, and the final stage is just, you know, the more destruction on the inside going all the way up. And that basically concludes all the evidence we have of the tower being, you know, attacked itself. It definitely is solid evidence. Like, those spikes are way too good of evidence to suppose otherwise, and there must have been some kind of battle. So that's all the evidence we have of the Battle of the Tower. Just a couple more things I want to highlight before we end this video is you can find these things all on the conspiracy board. You can go and ask Gasher if you want access to it. I will not be granting access, but you can comment on the video down below on things that you think of. But yeah, we have the 3 stages of the battle. Some other things to comment on are architecture of the tower. So the top of the tower, this is actually completely symmetrical, showing that that is not busted off at all, or at least I think. So it's all symmetrical, 4 pillars, the exact same like shape and everything. So that's very symmetrical. It's probably purposely put there, as well as this part of the tower. This is the very top part of the tower. The base of it is very symmetrical to a point. Like, this is completely symmetrical. So that's another thing to note. This is floating. I don't know of any other floating objects in the game other than the crystal like beacons themselves that have like the crystal floating. So maybe this is some kind of mythical seal of some sort, maybe sealing the big bad, which is a event that we think has happened. Another thing is that this darker gray stone, I believe, is some kind of cement or concrete, as you can see that the chains are cemented into them, as well as you see on the edges of the tower, it is kind of like it's a rougher surface if you look at the textures of it, and it kind of makes it look like it might have been larger pieces of cement, which, if you didn't know, cement has a hard time of just like, you know, holding if it's just sitting there off on its own. So it might have cracked off, making it so it's a rougher surface that we can climb on, which is why it's climbable. And I'm thinking it might either be cement or concrete, which makes, you know, it's a different kind of material, meaning it might be a different color. So the artificers might have had access to those colors. Another thing is these eye hooks, I believe, were probably to help hold up drawbridges and such like that, and that's why they're there. Just like little side note. Another thing here is that the top of the tower, the only way to get to it is either by climbing, which is the way that we used to get to it the first time, or teleportation, which might be implemented in the future. So maybe the artificers were really good climbers, or they just teleported to that top part of the tower from that 5th checkpoint or something like that. So that's another couple things. Another thing right here is this is very interesting shape on the ground of stone. So this actually probably shows that, yes, they had access to some kind of cement or concrete that was able to be poured into that shape. So kind of interesting. I still have no idea what some of these wood constructions were probably built of. My final crazy theory is that maybe if you compare the colors of the spikes to the colors of stone, it is the same color as normal stone. So maybe this whole battle was the retaliation of the earthwork people against the artificers for building on top of their shrines. And that might have been the either conclusion of both nations as they both kill each other, or maybe just the terabata attacked them. So those are the 2 factions I think are probably most guilty of this attack towards the artificers. But tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Please give this video a like, subscribe. Sorry it went so long, but we'll see you all in our next video. Bye bye.